I'm going to cover the steps on how to rescreen a patio door, and here's some of the tools you'll need. You'll need a tool to roll in the spline, some type of razor knife, a screwdriver, scissors. I'm going to use tape to help hold the screen down while I put it in, but you could also use a clamp, and then some screening. The first step, depending on your screen door, I'm going to remove this handle because it's going to be in the way to roll in the spline. So in this case, it's just 2 screws, and it's very easy to remove. You'll have to see what type of handle you have. And then some screens come with a rubber gasket which you can pull out of a slot to get out of the way. But now that we've got this removed and we can gain access to the spline, we'll pull out the old spline. So once you find a corner where the spline ended, you can use your screwdriver just to wedge under here and get it started. You might use a nail or maybe even a scratch awl to get it pulled out. But then, in most cases, it's going to pull out very easily. And you want to keep this spline because if it's in good shape, rather than spending the money for something new, you have the size and it's going to fit right back into the track very easy. So I pulled out the old spline. It's in great shape, so I'll be able to reuse it. But if yours is damaged, just make sure you bring in a piece to your hardware store and they'll be able to match that size because there's many different sizes of spline. So once the spline is out, all you have to do is just pull out the old screen. And this is a fiberglass screen, and we're going to replace it with fiberglass. So now we just roll out the new screening, and you want to make sure that it's about 1 inch past the groove in here on both sides. And then also on the top and the bottom. So I'm pulling the screen evenly on both sides, and I'm using duct tape, and I'm just pulling it tight. I'm not overstretching it. I just want it to be nice and smooth, and so I'm going to tape 2 corners, and I'm going to start working in the corner where I don't tape. Now you can use clamps, or depending on how big this is, you can use a couple more pieces of tape, but that'll kind of hold it in place for you while you're working in the spline. So the tool for putting the spline in generally has 2 different sides. One has a groove in the wheel and the other side doesn't. And for the round spline like this, we're going to use the side with the groove, and it's going to help hold it as we put it into the track. And this style door actually has a track that's set down into the edge of this. And a lot of the doors you'll find the track's going to be on top, so it's much easier to push in. So I have tape on 3 edges, and I'm just going to pull it just so it's snug. I'm not over tightening this, and we're just going to wedge this into the corner, and then using our tool we're going to set it in. And the trick is just using short motions, and I'm going to kind of use my finger ahead of this and keep it into the track, and I'm kind of just pulling it slightly tight as I'm working this tool, and just short movements. Again, I'm pressing into the track with my finger right ahead of the spline, and it's that easy to push it into the track. And now I'll work my way all the way down this first side. So now that I've finished this first edge, I'm at my corner. I'm going to remove the tape from this side, and I really want to make sure that I push this into the corner real well. We'll come back at the end and we'll use a screwdriver and get the corners firmly in. But we just want to make sure that it's pushed in. And then again, I'm kind of taking my finger ahead of the spline and working it into that track just ahead of the spline as I use short motions to embed it. And always make sure you're pushing at a slight angle into the top edge of this rather than on the outside, because if you slip off, you don't want to tear that screen. So you want your pressure to be on the outside as you work the spline. So now I'll just using the same motion, and you can kind of come back and work it. And the screen is being held tight now by this side and the tape in these other corners, and so as we pull the screen into this track, it's actually going to tighten up real nice for us. Now that I reached this corner, I removed the tape that was holding it in place, and again we're just going to force it into the corner and tuck it. Now on this side, it's a large area that we need to pull, and I'm just going to slightly pull it tight as I work my way down. You don't want to over tighten it because as you push in it will naturally tighten it, but we also don't want any waves. And you can always, if you are pushing this in and you get a little ripple in this, you can always just pull the spline out and rework it. So now we'll start this side, we'll push it in again with small strokes, and I'll work on this last big side. So I finished pushing the spline in all the way around, and almost always you're going to have excess spline. Over time, and as you push it in and you respline something, it's going to stretch that spline. So you're going to want to cut it, use a pair of scissors, just cut it into the edge, and now we're going to go into every corner, and we're just going to tuck the corners in. And here, be very careful because you don't want to push through and tear your screen. So you're just going to make sure the corners are set because you don't want it to work out. So go to all four corners, use a slotted screwdriver, and we'll tuck in the spline right in the corners. So now to cut the excess screening, we're just going to use a razor knife, and we want to make sure that we're on the outside of the spline in the track and point it at the frame. And you can just work your way all the way around, being careful not to go on the inside of that spline. I cut off the excess screen, and you can see how nice it turned out, and this is a skill that every homeowner should have, and you can work through your home and do all your window screens, doors. Very simple to do, and for this project, just buying a new tool and the cost of the screen, you've saved well over 50% of the cost if you were to bring it in and have it professionally done. So, nice, easy, do-it-yourself project.